All righty. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Super happy to have you guys here. Thank you for joining us. First off, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Roman Hux. I'm an engine captain on the Carson City District here in Northern Nevada, and I'm currently detailed into the state office as one of our BLM Nevada Fire and Aviation recruiters. I'd like to encourage all of you to go to check out nevadafireinfo.org to see the open job announcements, and you can set up an appointment to speak with a recruiter like myself or some of the other folks on this call, and we can answer any questions that you might have. Kind of like to talk to you a little bit about fire as well. What a day in the life is. So I work on the engines right now. It's an awesome program, super rewarding, fulfilling career. I get to work with some of the greatest people that I've ever met. I really enjoy it. It's better than anything I've ever done. Their job is different on a day-to-day basis, which I really love. We get paid to work out, we get paid to get fit. We get to spend time with the great folks, and it's different every day. You could have a day where you're at the station working out and doing things, going through drills with your guys, or next thing you know, you could be headed halfway across the country to be fighting fire elsewhere. And there's a lot of different avenues that you can go in fire, starting out with your basic levels and then working up through, if you want to join into helitech, work with helicopters and ships. There's smoke jumping, there's hand crew stuff. So it's a super rewarding job. There's a lot of different avenues that you can go into. And if you have any questions about, what it looks like daily to work as a firefighter, please feel free to reach out to me through nevadafireinfo.org and set up an appointment. And we'd love to chat with you. We're really excited for you to all be able to join us today. This webinar, we have two individuals that actually were engine captains with us, and now they work in HR, and they specialize in helping out the fire programs. They've got a lot of really, really good information to share with you all. And if you have any questions during their presentations, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. We're going to have a question and answer portion. And yeah, so I'd like to go ahead and kick this off. We're going to start off with John Hillenbrand.
How's it going, everybody? My name is John Hillenbrand. I worked in Nevada with BLM for 12 years in fire. I mainly worked with engines, did some details on crews and stuff like that, but left fire 2 years ago now as an engine captain and came over to HR. That's pretty much it about me. I'm gonna drop a link right here. Currently this position is open. It's the GS345 temp seasonal engine recruitment. It is currently open, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through a quick little synopsis on applying for jobs with as far as through USAJOBS. Make it a little easier on you guys. So give me 1 second while I share my screen. Sure. Somebody let me know when they can see my screen.
You're good, John.
Okay, cool. So this is what'll pop up when you select on a link to apply for a job, or when you search and then select something that you've searched. So this is the application I just selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through really quick and show you a couple things. So right here, normally this will say apply now, but I've already been in there. So I'm going to click edit my application. First page you come to, something like this. I have several resumes that I built here. I suggest using the resume builder on USA Staffing, on USAJOBS. It's a really good tool. One of the things though, when you do type up your resume, type it on a Word document and then copy and paste it to the resume builder. It times out really quick, and you'll get frustrated when you lose a half hour's worth of stuff. So we'll go like that. I selected a resume here. I'll save and continue. And then you can go through here and select other things. If you have SF50s, transcripts, IQCS, driver's license, and essentially the SF50, we use that to verify birth date, which also can be used. We can use a driver's license to do that. Although with temp seasonals, there is no age limitations on that. So I've selected a couple and I'll hit save and continue. Then this just verifies the document you have, save and continue. And now it's going to take me to a separate place. And then it just asks you where you learned about it. So I'll just say I learned about it from social media, hiring agency, and agency website. Let's just say that. Save and continue. Then you'll certify that and click continue to agency site. Now it's uploading all of your stuff to that agency site. Continuing again. Now it's done. I'll select continue. Just verifying my information. I already have a profile built, which is what you'll have to do before you can apply for a job, is you have to set up a profile in USAJOBS, which pretty quick, easy, painless. And once you have a profile, you'll save your username and password, and you'll be able to use that profile anytime you want. So continue. And then it asks specific questions, career trend, stuff like that. So you'll select, to the best of your knowledge, answer the questions there. And then required documents, just select continue here. And you get to this place right here. So at the top, you can read, and it says you may apply, only select up to 7 locations. So on this announcement, there's California, Idaho, Colorado, Nevada, and Utah, all in this application. So you can select 7 different locations that you'd like to apply for. Some Nevada, some California. We're hoping it's all Nevada, but select what works best for you. And then also right here, since this is open to grades 3, 4, and 5, you can select the lowest grade that you would like to apply for. If you're brand new and you've never applied before, select 3. 3 is the lowest grade. Entry level, you just need minimal qualifications, which is 6 months of experience, work experience, any work experience documented on your resume. And then you answer these questions here and select continue. And then here is the qualification questions as to how you qualify for the GS3, the GS4, the GS5. So what you'll do is you'll read through these and say, yes, I have 6 months general work experience. And you'd select that. That's why. Then you could select here and say, oh, I have 6 months general and 6 months specialized equivalent to a GS3 if you worked as a GS3 a previous season, or you have 2 years as above high school or 60 credits from college courses, or you qualify for a 5 because you have a 4-year degree in one of these fields of study or something else that pertains in here. You'll answer these questions the best you can. If you don't know what that stuff means, just select no. Select continue. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. When they built the announcement, it says separation notice RIF, and it says it's required, and it says SF50 says it's required. What you're going to do here is you can put any document in here. You could put a blank piece of paper that says, I do not have this, and it satisfies this requirement. By not having either of these two does not mean you will not be considered for the job. There's just a glitch in the system, or when they built it, that they didn't unselect these as required. So if you don't have either of these, you can put your, it'll hit a drop down, and you can put whatever else you have in here and drop it in there as a document, and it'll upload it. Now, if you're applying based off of education, you're going to need to apply your transcripts. If you have prior fire experience, you can upload your IQCS master record. If you don't have those, that's fine. Put in your resume. Always make sure your resume is in there, and then put something in for these two. And then you'll select continue. And it'll tell you you've completed all these. I acknowledge this, and then you'll submit and apply. And now it takes you to So I'm going to click return to USA Jobs, and it's taking me there now. And so now it says application status, accepting applications. And then you can track this application. That means you're applied for the job now and you're ready to go. So if you have any questions regarding that, please let me know or drop them in the chat. And we'll try and get to those the best we can today, answer those questions for you. I know I went over that pretty quick, but just remember, always make sure if it says it's required, put something in there. It doesn't have to be what it's saying it is, unless it's your resume. Make sure you put your resume in there. And that's all I've got. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, John. So hopefully that kind of helped you guys see what the process is when you're going through USA Jobs. I know that it can be a little bit taxing and it can be a pain to get through. If you guys have any questions, like I said, feel free to reach out to us through that nevadafireinfo.org, and myself or Weaver will go ahead and get to you, and we'll try to answer any questions and help you through that process. Next up, we're going to talk to Joe Bronson, and he's going to go through a little bit of the resume building.
All right, thank you, Roman. As mentioned, excuse me, my name is Joe Bronson. I'm a staffing and recruiting human resources specialist here at the state office. One of my primary responsibilities is I'm the career, seasonal, and permanent full-time recruitment coordinator for fire and aviation positions here in the state of Nevada. As mentioned, I'm going to briefly go over a little bit about federal resume writing, some of the things that we're looking for in there, some of the requirements that you need to have in your resume for it to not be disqualifying. And we'll briefly touch on some common application mistakes and expand a little bit on that application process with USA Jobs. So first off, if you've never written a federal resume before, it was mentioned by John, I would highly recommend checking out the USA Jobs resume building tool. It'll have required fields of information, which are required items that we need to see for your blocks of experience on your resume. And if you already have a resume built, it's a very good tool to utilize to compare and contrast what we're looking for and what you already have on your resume, whether it's written in a Microsoft Word doc or a Google Sheets, however you designed it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's really easy to copy and paste your current resume format, what you have, into the USA Jobs Builder tool. And then it's very easy to make sure when you have both screens pulled up, you know, am I missing anything in the resume that I have built already because I don't want to rewrite it? We get it. It makes sense. So some of the things that are there's some pretty big differences between private sector and federal resumes. One of the first things I can't stress enough is a narrative style resume. So I know going through high school and college, when we learn about writing resumes, everybody says to stick to one page, right? We don't like to see one-page resumes submitted for federal applications. We like to see lengthy narratives about your experience. It just makes it easier to adjudicate your resume to ensure that you're meeting the minimum qualifications for our positions. Sometimes if your resume is bullet point formatted, it's really hard to hit on all the areas we're looking for. So really with that narrative style resume, it's a lot easier to submit something like that for us to find that you meet minimum qualifications. Other things that we need to have on resumes is your job title, like what was the position called, grade, if it was a federal position, what grade was it, private sector, what was the approximate salary, so we can determine if that experience is equivalent to the grade that we're looking for. Dates worked. We can't just have the year of the date on the resume. So if you were to put 2020 to 2022, we can give you like 2 days of credit. I can give you credit for December 31st to January 1st type deal. It at least needs to be a month and a year. If you have a date, month and year, then that's even better. But at least at a bare minimum, month and year, so we can determine how many months you spent in that position. Hours worked per week is also very important. If you don't tell us that it was full-time, 40 hours a week, we have to basically look at it as part-time. So if you have 12 months of experience, but no hours hours listed worked per week, we have to assume it's part-time. It's the only thing we can give you credit for. And that 12 months of experience all of a sudden becomes 6 months of experience at part-time work. So hours worked per week is a huge thing that people miss a lot in their resumes. If you were to pull up that USAJOBS resume builder tool, it would tell you though that that's a required field that you would have to fill out. Another thing with resumes is make sure your experience is all listed under an appropriate block of experience. So a lot of people will put skills and abilities at the top of their resume that's kind of free floating and not really tied to a block of experience. None of that stuff you list at the top of your resume is going to be creditable unless it's tied underneath of a block of experience. So if you wanted to say you have computing skills, or you work on a ranch, or have farming experience, or you did some volunteer firefighter work, unless there's a block of experience on there that highlights that, it's not creditable. Going back to that volunteer experience, it can be unpaid, and experience like that is creditable. It's just on how you write that experience, which is how we read it, which basically determines what we feel that would be equivalent pay-wise if we read something like that. So don't sell yourself short on that volunteer experience. It is creditable, it just has to be listed there within your resume. Make sure our resumes are organized. They flow well from your most recent job to your first job if you go that far back. Try to keep everything sequential in a timeline, so there's good work history and a good flow to your resume. There's human folks reading these resumes, and we're reading hundreds at a time with certain applications. So the better organized and the easier to read your resume is, the easier it makes our job to go through and adjudicate all these applications appropriately to make sure you guys can get referred to a hiring manager for consideration. There's a lot of good information on Nevada Fire Info about some common resume mistakes. There's a lot of links to YouTube videos on how to write federal resumes, what that narrative style looks like. So I would highly recommend hopping on that site or just doing some searching on YouTube to look for some of those videos and check out and get some additional information if it's your first time applying for a federal job. So some common application mistakes that we see here on our end is that not all of your documents were added originally to your application. So kind of going back to that USAJOBS profile, you saw, John had a lot of resumes in there. So you kind of have to remember, well, what's my latest resume? What resume do I want to attach, to this specific job? I always tell folks and recommend that the less documents in your profile, the easier it is to add stuff to an application, which is your most recent stuff. Otherwise, just have good notes on the back end to make sure that you're attaching those docs. But if you remember that screen he pulled up, not all of your documents will automatically carry over to your application. So your selected resume at the front end will add over, but then you'll have to add in SF50s, driver's license, transcripts, IQCS if you had it. So just be really diligent and make sure you're double checking that page, that all the documents you want attached and everything you want to transmit along with your application is all locked and loaded on that document screen. So again, double check, triple check that page. It's really important just to make sure that all your documents are attaching. Ensure you read the job announcement in its entirety. There's a lot of information in there, but the qualifications section is going to be one of the most important parts in my eyes for folks to read. That's going to tell you what type of experience is required for the position, whether it's general, whether it's specialized, and it's going to clearly spell out this experience, blah, 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 is qualifying for this job. So you really want to make sure that whatever that announcement is asking for in that qualification section is reflected in your equivalent experience in your resume, because that's essentially how we're adjudicating applications, is we're comparing that write-up of experience to what's physically in your resume. So again, just make sure you read through that qualification section. If you're using education in lieu of experience to qualify for a certain job, make sure you're reading on what those educational requirements are. Unofficial transcripts are fine with your initial application. If you are ever selected for a position, you're using education to qualify, we will then instruct you during pre-employment to get official transcripts for us. But for application and minimum qualifications, things, all we need is an unofficial transcript, but it has to be something that shows coursework, that shows letter grades when you did it. And then, overall, If you have any issues or questions about the application process, at the very bottom, there's always going to be contact information. So when in doubt, reach out, right? If it's a specific name and a phone number, it was a specific HR specialist that did the announcement, it'll have their contact information, maybe just an email address, maybe a phone number, maybe both. If it says some kind of external inbox, that's going to an external, just kind of group box for that department. So if you do have questions or wanted to double check about your application to make sure it uploaded properly, reach out ahead of time, because it might take a couple of business days for that message to get into the box and then filter down to the appropriate specialists who are working the announcement to be able to reach back out to you. So don't wait until the last day the announcement's open to make sure that your application is good to go, because they might not be able to get back in time. If you were to do it day number 2 and the announcement is still open for 3 weeks, you still have time to go in and edit your application and update, those documents if something didn't attach appropriately. So always give yourself extra time to make sure that you can reach out, ask those questions, and make any application corrections before the announcement overall closes. And really, that's kind of the majority of information I have. We'll be around to answer any questions, of course. And then once again, I cannot stress enough, nvfireinfo.org, great information, great federal resume writing information. And these fire recruiters, like Roman mentioned, these aren't just suits and ties. These guys and gals are wildland firefighters. They've been there, they've done that, they do the job every year, so they really know what they're talking about. So yeah, I look forward to being able to answer anybody's questions. Unless I missed anything, Roman, I'll turn everything back over to you.
Hey, thanks, Joe. I think you gave us a lot of really good information. I do see that we have a couple questions in the chat, so I'll try to answer those aloud for anybody. So we had Justin that had a couple questions for us. He worked for the Nevada Division of Forestry last fire season for 6 months, and he's curious if this would qualify as 6 months specialized work. As long as you were working in a fire job, then that definitely would qualify for your 6 months specialized work experience. Just make sure that that's added into your resume, and then it's all good to go there. The second question was, is S-290 required for seasonal positions? And honestly, that just kind of depends on the position that you're applying for. Some of them, like some of the earlier quals, you won't need that for your GS3 and GS4. I don't think that you'll need the S-290. Some of those higher ones, you will need S-290 to qualify for those. So just make sure that you're really looking through that job announcement for the specifics of what you need for that. Then let's see here. Zoe asked if she worked a part-time job, does she need to put the hours worked per week? And yes, that is needed. So whenever you're seeing that, make sure that you're putting the date that you started, the date that you're finishing up, and then always write the hours worked per week. I've personally been excluded from a list that I more than qualified for because I forgot to put the hours per week on that list. So make sure that if there's any information that you can add like that, you're adding that and making sure that it gets in there. Real quick, I did want to go through some of the open jobs that we have so you guys can hear about what we have going on and the things that you are available to apply for right now. So we do have a fire logistics dispatcher job that is open, and that will be closing on January 10th. There is a fire lookout forestry technician at a GS5, and that will be closing today, actually. There's another fire dispatcher forestry technician, which is a GS4 through 7. And that job will be closing on January 10th. Then there is the wildland firefighter forestry aide / technician. And this is going to be like your entry-level engine jobs, or some of those as you're starting to move through your engine career and working towards getting those higher quals. And so that is going to be a GS3 through 5. It opened yesterday and will be closing on January 3rd. There's also the hotshot wildland forestry or wildland firefighter forestry technician. It's a GS6. That will be closing today. You will need some experience for that one. There's another hotshot wildland firefighter forestry aide technician. That is the GS3 through 5, and that is closing today as well. There's a hand crew wildland firefighter, GS3 through 5, that is closing today as well. There's also a materials handler position, and that is going to be a wage grade 4 through 5, and that will be closing today. Then we're going to get into some of your single engine air tanker jobs. So we have a seat manager position that's a GS7, and that is going to be closing on January 10th. There is another air tanker based forestry aid technician. It's entry level, so it's GS 3 through 5, and that will be closing January 10th as well, along with another air tanker based forestry technician as a straight GS 6 that will be closing on January 10th. So if you guys are interested in any of those jobs, feel free to reach out to us. I'm going to go ahead and drop my email in the chat. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Looks like we have another question from Garrett. Under the table, construction experience count as work experience that I should include on my resume. Honestly, if you have any job previous work experience, I would try to include whatever you can on your resume and try to build out and talk about what you did in construction. If you worked with hand tools, if you worked in anything that might be related to what you would be doing going into fire, try to highlight those things and add them in, because that will rank your application and it will make you look a lot better. Let's see, are there any other questions or anything like that before we get out of here? Give folks a minute or so. All right, well, I'm not seeing anything, and we wanted to kind of keep this short and sweet for you guys. Like I said, please make sure that you're going through, checking out that nevadafireinfo.org. Oh, we got another question. For those of us that want to be sent out of state, how do we find out which place have barracks? Excuse me. So that would be a question to reach out to a recruiter to see about. A lot of our, I'm pretty much sure every district does have barracks and quarters for folks to live in some way or another. So reach out for that, and we'll try to go ahead and get you that information and let you know about the specific district that you're looking into. But for the most part, we have places for folks to live everywhere, especially if you're coming from out of state and you're going into a new space. Let's see, got another question from Walter. Thanks for all the info. One question. Senior in high school and have never worked a normal job, have done several volunteer and unofficial work for neighbors during yard work. Will my experience count as the 6 months of work? That is a little bit difficult to, comprehend and put into words right here. If you want to reach out to me, Walter, feel free to send me an email, and then we can set up a phone call so we can go through your work experience and make sure and figure out what's going to work best for you. But we do hire, seniors fresh out of high school all the time and get them into a job. So yeah, just reach out to me personally, and we'll go ahead and try and get that question answered and ready for you. Does anybody have anything else? All right. Well, if that's the case, again, like to shout out nevadafireinfo.org, reach out to a recruiter, find out who you can speak to, and get a hold of one of us. When should we find out if we've been hired? From Ever Diaz. That is going to depend on just kind of when this goes through. The job announcements will be closing beginning of January. So I would expect to hear in the following month or so. And you should figure out and find out. And don't be afraid once you apply and try to reach out to those different areas that you have applied. And then they'll know that, hey, this person is interested in that job. They're on my list. I see that this person really cares and they want to get into the fire program. And that goes a long way with us and the different hiring authorities. When we see somebody who's proactive and really, putting themselves out there to try and reach out to folks and really get in, we will take extra time to look at those applications and put you at the top of our list a lot of times. So don't be afraid to give those hiring managers or whoever you can a call so that we can move forward that way. Hopefully that answered your question. If you have any more, feel free to reach out to me on my personal email. But on that note, oh, here we go. Sal, how many hours per week can you end up working? It really depends, man. So typically, we work 8-hour days. And then as the season goes on and the fire load starts to get bigger, we will end up working overtime hours in those days. But if we're on fires, if we're on assignment on a fire, expect to work 16-hour days for 14 days straight. So you could be working, your base shorter hours, or if you're out on assignment or you're working those fires, you can work 16 hours a day. And there can honestly be times where you're on IA where you're pulling a 36-hour shift where you're working that time straight, even more at times. So it really just depends on the fire load, depends on what you're doing, where you're at, and what is happening nationally at the time and on your district as well. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Really appreciate it. hopefully this will be a good tool for you guys. If you have any friends that are interested in fire jobs that were not able to make it on this call today, make sure that you are pushing them towards nevadafireinfo.org. We are going to have this recording up on there. And if you have any other questions, reach out to a recruiter and we will do our best to answer any questions and try to point you in the right directions that we're going to. Will we go through a training course or train on the go? So when we bring on new people, one of the first things that we do is we're going to put you through a rookie school. And then those first couple of weeks are going to be, you have to fill out some paperwork and go through that. You have to pass all your criticals, and then we'll send you off to rookie school. You'll go through that rookie school, and then we train for a good portion of the beginning of the year at the very least to try and make sure that everybody is set. They've had all the training that they need. So when they are in those situations where we're fighting fire and things can get hectic, you're ready to go. You don't have anything to worry about because you've gone through the training. So we'll do everything that we can to put you, in the best position to go out there and fight fire successfully and safely. So we'll get you trained up if we need to. And yeah, if there's not any more questions, like I said, I want to thank everybody. If there's any other questions after this, my email is in the chat, or you can set up a time to speak to a recruiter on nevadafireinfo.org. And thank you again all so much for being here. Like I said, the recording will be up later this week. And I hope you guys all have a great day. And we appreciate you being interested in fighting fire with us here at the BLM in Nevada. Thank you so much. You guys all have a great one.